In this lesson, we're going to take a look at a type of technical drawing called a perspective. The word perspective means point of view, or the way you look at something. A perspective drawing offers the most realistic three-dimensional view of all the pictorial methods, because it portrays the object in a manner that is most similar to how the human eye perceives the visual world. In a perspective, the parts of the object that are closest to the viewer appear larger, while features of the object that are farther away from the viewer appear smaller. We see this when we see something like a road that is wide when it's close to us, but appears to get narrower and narrower as it gets farther away, or a tall building that looks huge at its base, but seems to shrink as we look up its great height. Unlike isometrics and obliques, perspective drawings do not necessarily use a consistent angle for drawing lines in any of the three dimensions. This offers two disadvantages. One is that it makes perspectives a little more labor-intensive to draw. The other is that perspectives can show lines that represent the same height, width, or depth on the object, but are drawn at different lengths on the page, depending on how close or far away from the viewer they are. For this reason, perspectives are less useful for showing technical information such as dimensions, but they do offer a more visually realistic view for concept drawings. Where isometrics and obliques use specific angles for lines in each of the three dimensions, perspectives follow a different rule. In a perspective drawing, all of the lines running in a particular direction extend toward an imaginary point far in the distance called a vanishing point. Some perspectives use one vanishing point. We call these one-point perspectives. Typically, the width lines of an object are drawn horizontal and the height lines are drawn vertical, like an oblique. But where the depth lines of an oblique are all drawn at a 45-degree angle, the depth lines of a one-point perspective extend toward the vanishing point. This helps give the illusion of depth. Other perspectives use two vanishing points. We call these two-point perspectives. These are similar to one-point perspectives because the depth lines extend toward a vanishing point, but now the width lines also extend toward a second vanishing point. This gives a greater illusion of depth than a one-point perspective, but requires a little bit more work to create. Three-point perspectives are a little less common, but give us the most realistic look at an object. Like a two-point perspective, the depth and width lines extend toward vanishing points, but now the height lines also extend toward a vanishing point. With all perspectives, it's important to note that the closer the vanishing points are to the object, the more extreme the perspective will look. In order to get the drawing to look as realistic as possible, try to draw the vanishing points far away from the object. One-point perspectives are relatively simple to make, but they're somewhat awkward in appearance when compared with other types of pictorials. A horizontal line represents the horizon. One vanishing point is identified on the horizon line. A series of lines are drawn from the distinctive points on the object to the vanishing point, outlining the object to be constructed. The following section will show the steps used to draw an object in one-point perspective. First, sketch a horizontal line across the upper portion of the paper to represent the horizon, and identify a vanishing point. The vanishing point can be placed anywhere along the horizon line. Then, sketch the front face of a box, representing the overall size of the object. Next, sketch construction lines from the corners of the front face of the box back to the vanishing point. These construction lines are known as perspective lines. Now sketch the visible back edges of the box to represent the overall size of the object. Estimate the depth of the object to create proportions that produce a realistic appearance. With the box complete, locate points and construction lines to identify corners and edges of the object on the surface of the box. Then use object lines to trace over the edges of the object on the visible surface of the box. Continue to use construction lines to delineate the remaining corners and edges of the object inside the box. Trace over the construction lines with object lines to define the object. Now you can use tonal shading to enhance the appearance of the perspective sketch and create an even more realistic representation. Finally, erase the perspective lines so that only your drawing remains. Indoor spaces are typically drawn in one-point perspective, but these can be used for all kinds of objects. The two-point perspective is the most common perspective drawing. The following section will show us how to draw an object in two-point perspective. Like last time, start by sketching a horizontal line across the upper portion of the paper to represent the horizon and identify two vanishing points. The vanishing points should be placed toward each end of the horizon line. Then sketch a vertical construction line to represent the front edge of the object. The construction line can be drawn below, above, or through the horizon line. Locate 2 points on the construction line to represent the top and bottom corners of the box within which the object will be sketched. Then sketch a construction line from each point on the vertical line to each vanishing point. Now sketch points and vertical construction lines to represent the overall width and depth of the object. You will need to estimate the location of these lines to make the box proportional. Now sketch construction lines to represent the top back edges of the box. With the box complete, sketch points and construction lines to identify the edges of the object's faces that occur on the visible surfaces of the box. Trace over the construction lines to delineate the edges of the object faces that occur on the visible surfaces of the box. Now sketch additional construction lines to identify surfaces of the object inside the box. And trace over the construction lines to delineate the remaining object edges. You can now use tonal shading to enhance the appearance of the perspective sketch and create a more realistic representation. Finally, erase your construction lines. Two-point perspectives give us a little bit more realistic image of the object than one-point perspectives do. The three-point perspective comes in two different styles: the bird's eye view, which shows an object from above, the way a bird would see it, and the worm's eye view, which shows the object from below, the way a worm on the ground might see it. Now that you know a thing or two about perspective drawings, give it a try. Practice doing some 1, 2, and 3-point perspective sketches of your own. Good luck!